Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. I am your host. My name is Abby. Welcome back. I hope you are having a great Thursday or whatever day you're listening, and I'm excited to be here and hanging out. I'm excited to be here and excited for today's podcast. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with scrupulosity, and also wanted to talk about the fact that we are all learning, and this is all of our first time doing this whole thing, this whole life thing, and learning and growing. And I don't know, like there's so many first times and there's so many things that we do that we've never done before. And sometimes we are so incredibly hard on ourselves. So we're going to get into it. But first, if you're new to the podcast, let me introduce myself with who I am, what I like to do, a little bit about me, my history, why I have a podcast, a short little intro. I'll make it quick. My name is Abby. I am 20-something. I'm 27 or 28. I think I'm 27. Turning 28 this year. I love birds. I've recently gotten into bird watching because I always feel like birds are how God speaks to me, whether you believe in God or not. I do, but that's just my belief. That's just how I feel. I feel like it connects me to something bigger than me, like to God, and I just love them. Recently got binoculars. Well, my husband got me binoculars as a gift for our honeymoon. So I did a lot of bird watching there, and it was some of the best times of my life. I could have done it for hours a day, and I pretty much did. I like anime. I haven't watched it in a long time because I just am trying to not watch as much stuff for my mental state. I love anime movies specifically. I just think they're usually pretty devastatingly beautiful. I love video games. I love them because growing up, that's what I did with my siblings a lot. And now that we live all over the place, it is still something that sometimes they don't play with me, but I try to get them to play with me because it's like a love language of mine is just like quality time. And it's just awesome that you can laugh and have fun and play something silly when everyone is all over the place. When people say video games are all bad, I think that is a load of BS. I just think that that's like a one black and white way to think about video games. And that's kind of my take on a lot of things is I used to be very black and white, and my brain can sometimes still switch to that. But now, as I've gone older, things are just not so black and white. There is a little bit of gray, and that's okay, and that's part of life, and that's a little bit what we're talking about today. I really like nerdy stuff. I like fantasy. I like cute games. I like kind of violent games sometimes, and I go to church. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. But that's not what I make my podcast about. But you will hear me mention God every once in a while just because it is really important to me. And I do think that has been a huge factor in my journey with OCD and any of my mental battles. It's just been a huge comfort to me. And so I will talk about it every once in a while, but it's not like the whole point of my podcast because I really do love and respect everybody, whatever they believe. And I just ask that everyone does the same to me with my beliefs. So everybody's welcome here, but I understand if that's going to annoy you. I also I love arts and crafts. I have gotten into, I don't know what it is, but everything crafty right now is an obsession. I am starting to embroider. I made little clay magnets, which I was obsessed with. I just love to paint. I'm going to buy a sewing machine, I think, in the next couple of weeks. Since Joann's is going out of business, I kind of want to see if I can snatch one up for a good price. And I value like the peaceful, slow life. I love a little bit of like the grind mentality, but that's really only for like a week out of the month, honestly. And then the rest of the time, I just want like peace. I started this podcast as a place to be super vulnerable and to document my life. And when I started, I kind of felt like I was enough, like what I was saying was enough. And I don't know what enough means. I don't know how to define that, or what in my head I don't know what that even means, and enough for who. I think the longer I've been talking about my brain and my experiences for a couple years now on the podcast, and along the way, I've just started to feel very inadequate. And I bounce back and forth between feeling like not an imposter and then an imposter, but it's also just really hard when you want to talk about things that are important to you and to stay true to yourself through it all, because you just feel an immense pressure when you start to do anything for the public eye, whether that's like podcasting or content creation, or even if you're trying to do something just with performing, if it's not on social media, just in general, you do feel, and in any profession, sometimes you feel like you have to change who you are to fit in and to be successful. And because sometimes people do that and they are successful. And so there's a temptation there. And sometimes when I'm recording, I get so in my head about what I'm saying that I start to not tell as much of the truth, because I just overthink a lot. So I think sometimes sometimes I can find myself saying things I think I should be saying versus what I actually really feel. And I was beating myself up for that. And through that, I feel like I lost myself a little bit. You just think that you have to be like everybody else. Anyways, so the reason I share this is because I always said I would be vulnerable, and I always said I would be honest and open on my podcast, because that's what I really genuinely value, is just honesty and transparency and vulnerability, because that's just what my soul longs for, I guess, to be dramatic about it. The reason is because that kind of leads me into the main topic of today's episode, which was to remind myself and everybody that we are learning. I've never had a podcast before. I've never opened myself up to thousands of people before like this, and all of my inner thoughts and feelings and fears, and I don't know how that's going to be received sometimes, and it's really scary for me. And so I want to forgive myself for trying to mold, or maybe trying to be someone that I'm not, or even if it doesn't appear that way internally, just kind of give up the battle of trying to be something that I'm not, and to give myself so much more compassion and grace and understanding that I am learning how to do all of this. I'm learning how to be married after a divorce. Like, I'm learning how to do that. I'm learning for the first time how to deal with those feelings when I'm married again. And that's been really hard for me. It's also my first time living life at this age. Being in my late 20s is a lot different from my early 20s, or my teen years, obviously. This is my first time where I've really had to pivot in my career. I am training to be a doula now. Like, I'm for sure making that move, and I'm really excited. And the more I've learned about it, the more I fall in love with it. And I just am excited to be there and be the one person that doesn't leave the mother's side when she is in a very vulnerable state. And I want to be the protector of that. And I'm excited, but it's also horrifying, because if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, and I don't get money, and then I'm screwed. And I'm in a pretty comfortable 9-to-5 job, but it doesn't fill me. It doesn't make me feel alive. And I don't know where it's going to lead me. And I think that's horrifying. But it's my first time trying to decide to change careers. It's my first time learning how to be a doula and all of that. We all have so many things in our lives that it's our first time doing, or maybe it's our 15th time doing it, but we still deserve the same amount of compassion, because that's going to help you move forward. Anytime I ever shame myself, or anytime I ever make myself feel less than because I messed up again, that has never made me move forward. That has only put me backwards. So it's actually very illogical to do that, to shame yourself and put yourself down in order to move yourself forward. Maybe for some people it works. For me, it doesn't. I've tried it a billion times and it has never, ever once worked for me. The only thing that has ever worked is being compassionate to myself, compassion and empathy and grace. So if you have something that you're beating yourself up for, or that you are frustrated with yourself for not perfecting already, just have so much compassion for yourselves. You're not being a baby. You're not too much. The world would be such a sad place if everyone just ripped away the compassion that we had for ourselves or for other people. Like, sometimes it feels like people are doing that so much, where it's just like, oh, you're imperfect? Okay, let's rip compassion away from you. Whatever it's your first time doing or second time or whatever, even if it's a mental experience, it's your first time living with OCD and being diagnosed and understanding, and or if you've had like a tragedy, it's your first time you've ever had to deal with that maybe. And so just be so patient and compassionate to yourself, because it's hard. And life can be pretty confusing, even if you have a faith or if you believe in something. It doesn't take all doubt or confusion away. It just doesn't. And that's an impossible expectation to have. So I just wanted to remind myself and everyone that we're learning and that it's going to be okay. Sometimes we learn things very slowly, and there is no rush to learn stuff. You will learn at your own pace, and that's okay. And you will learn at the pace where you can actually understand what you're learning. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, which is mixed in with all of this as well, is scrupulosity, which is religious OCD, but scrupulosity is very specific to, from what I understand. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional. This is not a replacement for therapy. This is just my own personal understanding and experiences. I have to put that disclaimer in there always, because it's important to me that you guys do not think I am a professional, because I am not. Is when you have an obsession or you almost can't stop trying to figure out where you stand on the moral, where everything stands on a moral compass, and whether or not everything that you do all day, every day is the exact right thing you should be doing to be morally clean. And it is an obsession, and you do compulsive behaviors like praying for forgiveness, but it's constantly. And sometimes there's not even like a real feeling of understanding of what you did. It's just more to feel right and feel better and feel clean. And it's an exhausting thing to experience. I had it most of my life. I grew up Christian. And with all religions and faith, there are commandments and there are things that you are told you'll be better if you do these things. And so, of course, a young girl wanting to please people, wanting to be perfect, hearing that that is a thing, and also being susceptible to developing OCD, the mental illness, it became an obsession, and it stole a lot of my experiences away from me when I was little and in high school, because that's like all I could think about. And if I had negative thoughts, I would pinch myself, or sexual thoughts, I'd pinch myself. If I felt unclean, if randomly I just felt unclean, I would pray until I felt clean again. And it wasn't just like once in a while, it was like every day or multiple times. I would hate going to church. I just felt scared all the time. And keep in mind, I am literally like 8, 9, or 10 years old, and even younger, I remember. So don't think there's anything that crazy I was doing. And then as I've gone older, it kind of turned into if my faith was correct, and if every belief that I ever had about anything ever was the exact right belief that I should have, according to what God would say. And so it wasn't just like based out of faith. It was like, I have faith, but also I need to make sure I have the exact right faith and the exact right things. And if it didn't, and I would check constantly to see how I felt, to see if I would think about the same things over and over and over again, in terms of, I would think about what I'm learning, and I'd think about what I've been taught, and does that align with how I feel, and does this align with, like, logically speaking, does this align with this historical thing? And I think it was mixed in with a little bit of a faith, like having a lot of doubts and questions about my faith anyways. But then you put OCD on top of that, and it's like it really became a really dark time for me. And it made me question things about God, who he is. It was exhausting because like it's crazy to expect to get an answer to every little question about every tiny little scenario and which was the exact right way to think. That's how it felt. It wasn't just, oh, I want to be a good person, so I'm just going to do this and like I'll figure it out. And if that's not correct, I'll figure it out. It was like, no, when I'm watching a movie, I am going into the heads of the bad guys and the good guys, and I'm figuring out A, am I a bad guy or a good guy? B, how would I prevent myself from ever becoming the bad guy? And how come I'm empathizing with the bad guy? Does that make me a bad guy? That's like how it was. And sometime, and it still is, like that obsession comes up when I'm watching movies. Movies are so triggering for me for some reason still. But it's a really good exposure because it's incredibly uncomfortable. And I think of any situation during the movie, if that was a right or wrong thing to do. And I would check, I would be like, okay, how do I feel about that? What would I do in that situation? It was constant. I don't struggle with that to where it goes down too much of a rabbit hole, but it's something that I still have a lot of room to improve on. And I think there's just still a lot of things that I can learn because I'm learning. And I've been learning for a long time with my OCD, but also I had it for, I think, since I can remember, like a little girl. And so it's been 20 something years ingrained into my brain. So it's okay if it takes up to 10 years, 20 years to recover. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to remind myself that sometimes as well. So I would always go talk to my church leaders, and I would tell them, I would confess my sins over and over again. I would give and it wasn't just like once, I would keep going and going and going because I just felt like, okay, when I tell them, I feel so much better afterwards because I'm like, okay, now I feel clean. Now I feel good. But then it would just come right back, and then I'd have to do the same thing over again, and it wouldn't really end. And it always felt not sustainable and never felt sustainable. No compulsion is sustainable. That's like the whole point. I can't go and tell somebody all of my sins all the time when I feel bad a little bit about something. If I had any bad thoughts or if I had negative thoughts about God or Jesus or anything pop into my head, I would, either vocally out loud say, no, 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 no. I would push thoughts out of my head. What else did I do? I would say I hate myself over and over again. Sometimes I would say I love myself, which it just was basically I'm saying something over the thoughts. The whole thing with pushing out thoughts is when you do that, they just come back with vengeance. And because your brain will pick that up as in, oh, okay, so that was dangerous. So if anything has to do with that, I'm going to send it to her. She has to figure this out. Like that's how your brain is interpreting that, is when you're like, no, 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 I don't want to think about that. No, 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 no. Then it's like, okay, that was scary. So then it's going to send that to you and say, hey, this freaked you out. So you got to figure this shiz out, okay? You got to figure out how you're going to prevent being whatever you're scared you're going to be. You have to figure this out because it scares you, So we got to fix this. It doesn't make it easy to not push thoughts out of your head, and I still get intrusive thoughts quite often, but I don't react the same way. I try to just let them be there, and I don't feel comfortable, and I might feel icky or weird for a little bit, but then eventually it goes away, and sometimes it doesn't, and I just feel weird for like 2 days. And those days are pretty hard, honestly, and I don't know when that's going to end or if it ever will, but I can handle it. I have. There's probably so many other things that I could share about my scrupulosity, but those are the main things that come to mind. I think it was something that just came to a breaking point a couple years ago, and I had to face it because, again, it was not sustainable how I was living and how I was viewing like my faith and relationship to God and all of that stuff. It just was not sustainable. I think it was probably breaking God's heart a little bit. And I think it does when we are so scared of him and when we are so scared of like doing everything wrong. And I believe he wants us to feel free and to enjoy the bodies that we have, to enjoy the life that we have. And so it was kind of a blessing to have that come to a breaking point, because it forced me to rethink my beliefs and my limiting beliefs and just those things that I think were lingering internally that had to come out so that I could take one long look at myself. And the actual recovery from it is a lot of exposures and also looking at my beliefs and really, really getting real with myself, not being scared of what other people may think about what I believe anymore, or like I just had to focus on what I really think. And I did pray, but it wasn't compulsive anymore. My therapist and we did a lot of scripts, like if God was mad at me. We did a lot of scripts, like I wrote stories about how God is mad at me as a exposure, and I would read it to myself. I would also write scripts about me choosing all the wrong things to do, like making a bunch of mistakes, believing the wrong faith, all of these things that scare me. Now I feel much more equipped to handle the uncomfortable feelings. Okay, so let's do a Dear Abby, and then we will wrap up today's episode. Okay, we got a Dear Abby, and it is a text message. Dear Abby, how can I balance my 9 to 5 and my other passions, side hustles, and balancing just having friends, being married, resting, and taking care of yourself while working full time and working toward your creative passions? Thank you. Yeah, that is a hard question, and not something that I don't think a lot of people have mastered. I think the best way to balance it all is, okay, I'm thinking of 2 different aspects of balancing the 9 to 5 with everything else. And the first one is your emotional or mental capacity, how to make sure you have enough for each thing. My advice is just to try to be as present as you can. For example, if you're working your 9 to 5, focus on that 9 to 5 for maybe 60%, because sometimes 100% is impossible, and I don't even think that's possible to focus 100% of the time when you're at work. I just really don't, and I think you're lying if you say you do. But even if you just focus like 60% of the day when you're at work on work, tell yourself just this: I'm just doing this for now. I can't even do the other creative things right now. I don't have the tools with me. I'm not allowed really to focus on other things anyways, because I'm at work. And then that way, when you get off work, you haven't just been ruminating in your head. And for me, when I do that, it's easier for me to focus on what I want to do when I get home, because then I'm not just detached from myself, and then I have more energy to do the things I actually want to do when I get home. If you get home and you only have like 4 hours before you're going to bed, then maybe set 2 hours to just focus on being with your husband if you're married, or your spouse, or 1 hour and just focus on them and their relationships. Try for that hour to just focus on them and your relationship, and not have all these other things in the back of your head taking control, but they'll probably still be there, and that's okay. And then once you're done with that, then you move on to the next thing. If you wanted to do a project before you go to bed, whatever it is, I just feel like when you compartmentalize things in your head a little bit more and you're more present with what you're doing, you have more energy at the end of the day. At least that's how I am. Also, honestly, waking up before work, like waking up early and going to get a workout in, really changes the game for me in terms of I'm more tired physically, but mentally I'm much more on top of my game, and I'm less, honestly, depressed when I'm at work. Really take advantage of the weekends. Sometimes I do my grocery shopping like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or on Fridays even. And then I really take Saturday and Sunday, or like craft, relax, go to the beach, like full reset days, and I don't use them to do a bunch of chores. Obviously, there's some things that you'll only be able to do on the weekends, like chore-wise, or if you have to, I don't know, do something on Saturday because you don't have any other time. Those are obvious exceptions. Don't even have to mention that. But other than that, I think for me, having Saturday and Sunday as my reset days, not only grocery shopping days and cleaning days, but like a full day and a half of just relax, do what I want to do, take my time, just lounge around, kind of get my creative juices flowing again, however that looks. I also think take the pressure off of having to have a perfect schedule in order to be creative. It can be tempting to think that because you work at a 9 to 5 job, you can never be creative anymore, or that you aren't going to have any energy ever again and you're going to be only sad. You can definitely have creative juices flowing once you're done with your 9 to 5, and you're not going to have a miserable existence just because of it. I think the trick just comes in letting go of like the perfect dream lifestyle. And that's kind of when you start to get it. But that's a little bit more complex, and I don't even know how to explain what I was just saying. But just don't wait till everything's perfect to believe that you can do some of your creative endeavors. And the other thing is, sometimes when I work all day, I just want to come home and detach and decompress by watching shows or doing something like doom scrolling. If you feel like you want to just detach and decompress for too long, I would say maybe turn everything off and just sit with yourself for a little bit, literally in silence, and just see how you feel. Just be curious. Yeah, I hope any of that was helpful. Thank you guys. We're going to wrap that up. Thank you for asking a question and texting the number. If you guys have questions or about anything, you can text the number that's always linked in the description below. If you want to support the podcast, you can like, subscribe, comment on YouTube, or leave a rating and a review on Apple or Spotify podcast or Spotify. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Love you. Bye.
우회전 taking a ride to journey 눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들